SummerSlam, one of WWE's original Big Four pay-per-views, has managed to retain its aura in the 30-plus years that it's been an annual event. Since the inaugural show in 1988, the biggest party of the summer, they obviously haven't been to any of Cultaholic's big blowouts where we have pizza and charades, has grown in reputation as a place where big matches and moments happen on the reg. And that includes title changes. From the hardcore and $1 million to the Intercontinental and World Heavyweight and everything in between, odds are that if you're tuning into the Summer Spectacular, you're likely to see a title or two swap their owners. There have been countless major title changes at SummerSlam over the past 3 or so decades, my personal favourite being Lex Luger's WWE title triumph against Yokozuna in 1993. What? He didn't win? A count-out? Why is he celebrating like that then? For As I was saying, countless major title changes, but which ones are the biggest and the best? Let's find out. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 biggest WWE SummerSlam title changes ever. Join us. Number 10, The New Day in 2015. It's hard to imagine, but there was a time when people really didn't care for The New Day. Showered with chants of New Day sucks at every turn, fans weren't convinced by the trio, who were actually forced to turn heel early into their run due to the negative crowd response. New Day captured the WWE Tag Team titles at Extreme Rules 2015, but had lost them by the time SummerSlam rolled into the Barclays Center a few months later. Stealing a win over champions the Primetime Players, Los Matadores, and the Lucha Dragons in a 4-way match, they received a hearty response from the Brooklyn faithful, as New Day apparently didn't suck anymore, but rather rocked. Their post-match celebratory dance should, if there's any justice in the world, one day be on display in the Smithsonian. Though they were still ostensibly heels, the tide was clearly beginning to turn, and it wasn't long before New Day morphed into one of the most over babyface acts in the company. Not only that, but their reign ended up being a record setter as they dropped the belts after having them in their possession for 483 days. A lot has happened since SummerSlam 2015, but you can point to that title change as a real watershed moment in the careers of Kofi Kingston, Big E, and Xavier Woods. Number 9, Triple H in 1998. In the summer of 1998, The Rock wasn't quite the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, and Triple H wasn't yet the smartest and toughest man who had ever lived. Rather, the two stalwarts were hot prospects who were bubbling just under the main event scene, fighting over the Intercontinental title in a feud that would serve to enhance the reputations of both men. I mean, knob jokes and raised eyebrows also had a thing or two to do with it as well, but still. Their issue culminated in a gripping ladder match at SummerSlam, the Great One entering the contest as champion and having enjoyed a 9-month reign. It was a toss-up as to who would win between D-Generation X and the Nation of Domination, and as a result, the match had real drama to it. In the end, the game prevailed to win his second IC title, receiving a thunderous response from the MSG crowd. Though he would be too injured to properly defend it and would thus be forced to vacate, the win was a big moment in the Cerebral Assassin's career. A year later, he and the People's Champion would be two of the biggest stars in the business and scrapping over the WWE title, and it might not have been possible were it not for this. Number 8, Finn Balor in 2016. Alright, so this one isn't technically a title change, as a belt did not go from one pair of hands to another, but it was the crowning of a new champion, and really, if you want to get all semantic about it, please feel free to email me to discuss at jackthejobber@fakeemail.com. When Dean Ambrose was drafted to SmackDown in the 2016 draft, he took the WWE title with him, necessitating the creation of the new Universal title for Raw. I say it was necessary, it wasn't really, but you can never have too many belts now, can you? A mini tournament was set with Seth Rollins and main roster newcomer Finn Balor advancing to the finals at SummerSlam 2016. The match, as you would expect given who was involved, was a banger, with Balor unleashing the demon for the grand occasion. Though they booed the actual belt itself, the fans were thrilled when the Irish Ace nailed the Architect with a coup de grace to claim his first major singles title in WWE. It was the right decision at the right time, and though he would vacate it the very next night due to a shoulder injury suffered during the match, it was a great moment. Number 7, Ronda Rousey in 2018. When Ronda Rousey made her debut at the end of the 2018 Royal Rumble, it seemed to be a question of when, not if, she would rule the women's division. How quickly she shot up the ranks would depend on how fast the former UFC sensation adapted to pro wrestling. Considering her first match, and specifically her performance, stole the show at WrestleMania 34, the answer seemed to be very quickly indeed. Booked against Raw Women's Champion Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam, it was practically a given that Rowdy Ronda would walk out as champ, which she did, completely destroying the goddess in short order before celebrating with Natalya and the Bellas. It wasn't a classic match, and it didn't have to be. This was all about establishing Rousey as the new face of the division, if not the company. Many massive matchups, including those against Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, awaited, and it was clear that Ronda being champion meant a lot for the women's revolution. Were it not for her winning the title here, there's no guarantee that WrestleMania 35 is main evented by the winner-takes-all bout. And if Rousey never steps foot in a WWE ring again, we can always look back at SummerSlam 2018 and when she won her first and possibly only WWE title. Number 6, the British Bulldog in 1992. SummerSlam was the biggest thing to hit the United Kingdom, well, ever. Bigger than the 1966 World Cup, Live Aid, and every episode of Only Fools and Horses combined. Considering they were able to fill up Wembley Stadium, it's fair to say that WWE were a very popular presence in Blighty. One of the key reasons for that popularity was the British Bulldog, our nation's very own superhero who sat up there alongside the Ultimate Warriors and Macho Mans, proudly waving the flag, or at least wearing it on his lovely tights. Bulldog was, naturally, positioned in the main event, taking on Bret Hart for the Intercontinental title in a historic showdown. Davey Boy was, shall we say, a little worse for wear going into the bout, but somehow managed to pull it together long enough to have his best ever match. A rollicking back and forth mat classic, Bret vs Bulldog was capped off with Smith's title triumph as he reversed a sunset flip to capture his first WWE singles title. If there was a roof, it would have come off, such was the size of the pop that greeted it. Since there wasn't, let's just say that the title change blew the bloody doors off. Number 5, Randy Orton in 2004. With Brock Lesnar off to play football and Dave Bautista not quite the animal he would soon become, WWE looked to Randy Orton to lead them into the future. Orton had established himself as the legend killer and elevated thanks to his incredible series with Mick Foley. The former Intercontinental Champion earned a shot at Chris Benoit's World Heavyweight title at SummerSlam 2004. No easy feat, as the Rabid Wolverine's reign had been characterized by typically hard-fought battles, and as promising as Orton looked, Benoit was a popular champion and a young Randy was unproven at the very top level and was notably immature at this point in his career. I'm talking pooping in people's bags immature, by the way. Perhaps WWE felt bestowing the responsibility of being the champion on him would force the Viper to grow up a little, because he beat Benoit in a sterling main event to win his first world title. After the match, the Crippler endorsed his successor with a well-earned handshake as the increasingly popular Orton soaked it all in. The reign didn't last, don't worry, there would be plenty more to come, but this victory here showed that he could headline. Oh, and he beat Brock's record, becoming the youngest world champion in WWE history. Take that, you wannabe Viking. Number 4, Bret Hart in 1991. A year before the British Bulldog had his crowning moment against him, Bret Hart was enjoying his own success as he won his first WWE singles title at SummerSlam 91. Now out on his own without Hart Foundation partner Jim the Anvil Neidhart by his side, the Hitman set his sights on becoming Intercontinental Champion, which back then was seen as a springboard toward the WWE title and the main event. The champion was Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig, one of Hart's favourite opponents and someone that he always had good matches with. And this one was no exception. The excellence of execution taking on perfection in the world's most famous arena as Bret's parents Stu and Helen watched on. Magic. Despite Hennig going into the match with a serious back injury and in not inconsiderable pain, he would be out of action for over a year after, the two put on a classic, culminating with Hart tapping him out to the sharpshooter before celebrating with his ma and pa. The victory established Bret as a single star to watch while adding to his growing collection of great matches. A little over a year later, he would win his first WWE title, and the rest, as they say, is mystery. What do you mean it's history? Have I been saying it wrong this whole time? Oh, I've been making an idiot of myself. Number 3, Daniel Bryan in 2013. Daniel Bryan's first run as WWE World Champion ended in not exactly favourable circumstances. That is, of course, because he lost the title at WrestleMania after one kick to the face in 18 seconds on his birthday. Okay, so it wasn't really his birthday, but the American Dragon certainly had his legs cut out from underneath him. The upshot was that Bryan's popularity rocketed in the aftermath, thanks in large parts to his antics with Team Hell No, and he became so beloved over time that he was handpicked by John Cena to be his challenger for the WWE title at SummerSlam 2013. Powered by the amazing fan support behind the Yes movement, Bryan beat Cena with his new finisher, the Knee Plus, in what was considered a major upset. I mean, seriously, who would have put money on this short, lightweight vegan pinning the face of the company clean on one of the biggest shows of the year? Well, a man called Adam Pacitti, that's who, and I have 18 English pounds in winnings to prove it. Not so much an upset, but definitely upsetting was Triple H turning on Bryan after, allowing Randy Orton to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase and leave the event as the new champ. Once again, in the grand scheme of things, that didn't do D-Bry too much harm in the long run. Number 2, The Ultimate Warrior in 1988. Brutus Beefcake was supposed to face the Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental title at the very first SummerSlam, but he was unable to compete due to a kayfabe injury suffered at the hands of Outlaw Ron Bass. Oh well. In the midst of a record-setting reign, Honky was feeling cool, cocky, and bad enough to lay down the gauntlet and issue an open challenge to anyone in the back. Enter a man as fast as Usain Bolt and with more muscles than Arnie in his prime, sprinting to the ring with such force that he almost knocked poor Howard Finkel into the 5th row of MSG. The place became unglued, the roof came off the building, and, well, pick a cliche about a deafening ovation and it applies here, because that crowd were going absolutely bananas for the Ultimate Warrior, who squashed the Elvis wannabe to become champion in 30 seconds. It was the most satisfying half a minute this side of that magical post-prom party at Debbie Sue's. This was great for several reasons, as it not only offered a fantastic payoff for the months of the Honky Tonk Man retaining his belt by the skin of his teeth, but it set Warrior up well for bigger and better things down the line. Number 1, Brock Lesnar in 2002. What do you do when your biggest star ever decides to go home and your second biggest star decides he'd rather go off and become the most popular actor in Hollywood? Well, you create a new star, damn it! One that's young and massive and ripped and is a former NCAA Division I heavyweight champion. Yeah, that'll do it. The next big thing climbed to the top of the mountain in just a few short months on the main roster and found himself in the main event of SummerSlam, challenging The Rock for the WWE title. Lesnar had looked impressive to that point, but this was a serious test for the rookie, and failing on the big stage was not an option. Happily, the Beast Incarnate rose to the challenge and had an absolute blinder with the Great One. Lesnar was also helped by a crowd that really wanted him to win, as they knew Big Dwayne would be off making movies in no time. Brock won the match and became, at the time, youngest WWE World Champion in history. And all credit to the Brahma Bull, who did everything in his power to put the newcomer over strong, doing the honors the right way and facilitating the biggest WWE title change in SummerSlam history.